Kamusta yo fam? I'm Yuawarts, and in this video, I'll be making one of the most requested craft in the channel, which is Bobo Boy's Lightning Sword. Since a lot of you Bobo Boy fans asked me to make this craft, I've come up with 4 easy steps to make this into reality. So, let's begin. First, I printed the template for this Bobo Boy Lightning Sword. If you guys are going to make one, simply click the link in the description and download the PDF file. I created this template for free, that way you guys won't have to worry about anything, so I'd really appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. After cutting out the template, I glued these pieces together. I stick the A2 piece over A1 and did the same with the remaining pieces. Once the glue dried, I then cut out these shapes. For this craft, I'll be using PVC board, specifically Sintra board. I chose to use this material for this creation because I'll be cutting out bevels later on, which would be difficult to achieve if I use cardboard. And it's also very durable. Plus, compared to cardboard which has uneven surface, Sintra boards have a smoother surface with a low gloss matte finish. Bobo Boy's weapon is composed of 2 swords, so I'll be making 4 pieces out of each template. For the bigger blades, I'm using a 5mm thick board and a thinner one for the other pieces. After tracing the template onto the board, it's now time to cut these out. Now, one downside of using Sintra board compared to cardboard is that this material is a lot harder to cut out. If your cutting knife isn't sharp enough, cutting through this material would be so much difficult. In fact, even with my new blades, I still had a tough time working with the material and had to really push hard to cut through the PVC board. I mean, just look at how I'm holding the cutting knife. Once I finished cutting, it was all worth it because the pieces looked pretty good already. Next step is to stick these pieces together. These are the bigger blades, which is where the smaller ones will be glued onto later. But for now, we'll work on these first. Now, as you can see, I'm stabbing the poor PVC board to create some holes because I thought that these would make the glue stick onto the board much better, but I discovered later on that it doesn't actually make a huge difference, so you guys don't have to do this. I then poured a lot of glue to make sure that these boards stick really well with each other. To secure these pieces, I even taped them together. After wiping off the glue, I then placed these objects on top of the pieces to make sure that they're flattened out and stick really well with each other. It's day 2 of making this craft, and as I lifted the objects off from the pieces I glued together last night, I was surprised by how messy it was, so I guess I poured too much glue. But anyways, I simply wiped off the excess adhesive and continued with my work. As I mentioned earlier, bevels will be carved out on some parts of the sword, so I use a compass to mark these areas. Then I took my cutting knife and carved the edges of the sword to make the bevels. In this step, you need to be careful enough because we don't want to carve out a huge chunk of the edge because that could definitely destroy the shape of the bevel. We don't want to make any mistakes here, so I simply took my time in forming the bevel bit by bit. By the way, I just found out that 92% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed to the channel yet, so if you're one of them, now's the perfect time to subscribe. Carving out the bevel on these blades really took a lot of time, but if you guys are patient enough, it'll definitely be worth it. Plus, it was actually satisfying for me to carve out bits of the sinter board, so I barely felt exhausted or whatsoever. After I created the bevels on the blades, I took my rotary drill and polished the edges to make them smoother and cleaner. I was producing a lot of powder while smoothing the blades, and I don't want my room to be filled with dust, so I took the pieces outside and continued there. It was already late at night when I was doing this, and I even posted a story on Instagram. So if you guys want some spoilers, if you want to see some behind the scenes, you know what to do, just follow me on Instagram. I hope you guys can see it, but there really is a difference before and after polishing the edges. After smoothing the edges, I then glued the smaller blades onto the main pieces. This time though, I didn't stab any more unnecessary holes onto the blades because either way, the glue is already enough to hold the pieces together. There were uneven areas in some parts of my sword, so to fix this, I used wood filler to cover the gaps. Once these dried, I then smoothened the areas with sandpaper. I then covered these areas of the blade with tape, and honestly, this tedious task could have been prevented if I simply painted the blades separately before gluing them together, but had I not done what I did, it would have been difficult for me to fix the gaps and uneven areas of the sword since they're already painted. I then took the blades outside and spray painted it with black. Before I continued painting the blades, I worked on the handles first and recycled this PVC pipe. This weapon is composed of two swords which can be linked together to form a double-bladed sword. So to achieve this, I cut out two PVC pipes with each having a larger opening on one end so that I can connect them together like this. After that, I carved out some portion of the sword handle to fit into the pipes. I then painted the remaining areas of the sword with red and black for the pipes. While I waited for the paint to dry, I worked on the remaining details of the sword. I cut out 4 lightning bolts and painted them with red. I then took some googly eyes and painted it with silver. Once the paint dried, I then put all the pieces together, including this strip of yellow EVA foam. Now before I show you my finished work, shout out to these creative Yo Fam for sharing with us their amazing DIYs. Well done you guys, and I hope you all stay creative. And to those who want their creations to be featured in my next video, simply DM me a photo of your work on Instagram. Okay, so without any further ado, here's my Bobo Boy lightning sword. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys liked this craft and enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!